Seriously, what is happening with the very passage of time in this play? Let's find out. Hi there, I'm Giles Gough. I'm an education writer and a recovering English teacher. And today we're going to be looking at time as a theme in An Inspector Calls and why it's so important. Let's get into it. So let's go over the absolute basics. An inspector arrives and tells the Burling family that they have had something to do with the death of a young woman named Eva Smith. After he leaves, Gerald casts doubt as to whether Inspector Gould was in fact a police inspector. They find out that there is no Inspector Gould on the force and that no woman has died from ingesting bleach in the infirmary. They're very happy about this, obviously, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there is a phone call where they are told that a young woman has died and a police inspector will be along to ask some questions. The implication being they are about to repeat the process they have just been through. And let's be honest, it's a weird ending, right? It doesn't make any sense or any sense that is explained in the play. It's a big old dangling plot thread. So let's get into why that is. What's going on there? So first of all, Priestley was fascinated by time and theories surrounding time. Different authors have different things that obsess them in some way, shape or form. For Priestley, one of the things that's always going to obsess him is the issue of time. So Priestley explored this in his Time Plays, which is a small collection of his plays which were written between 1935 and 1945. These include Time and the Conways, I Have Been Here Before, and An Inspector Calls, which is written in 1945, first published on the English stage, first performed on the English stage in 1946. Now, essentially, what all these stories are is they are a time loop story. All right, it's not traditional time travel. It's not somebody goes back into the past to change something, or somebody goes into the future or to find out what life is like centuries from now. A time loop story is a very specific kind of story. It's when characters experience the same events over and over and they have to do something different in order to escape the time loop. This has been done in Doctor Who, in Star Trek The Next Generation, in this show Devil's Hour. I'm not going to tell you too much about that because that might be a spoiler, but it's pretty awesome. You should check it out. And time loop stories now in sci-fi are, I want to say, fairly common, but when Priestley's writing, they are absolutely not. This is a fairly new concept. So Priestley is inspired by a few different thinkers on this point, and we're going to get into it now. The first one is Piotr D Ouspensky. So Ouspensky is born in 1878, dies in 1947. He is a Russian-born philosopher. He travels the world and he went to Ceylon, and he wrote a book called The Fourth Dimension. Now, the reason why Ouspensky is interesting is because of his theory. So he suggests that when we die, we re-enter our life once more from the beginning. This cycle of identical lives would go on being repeated if we changed nothing of significance. If, however, we improved in some spiritual way, we convert the circle into a spiral of events that would, if we continue to make significant improvements, eventually open the way up for us to escape from the repetitions and into a new life in which we did not repeat our mistakes. And that's all well and good, but in order for you to make those right choices or anything like that, you would have to be aware that you are in a time loop. And it's bizarre because obviously everybody's lives affect everybody else's lives in some way, shape or form. So it's very confusing, this one, how you could actually expand this into a macro level. For example, if my grandfather makes some different life choices, then I don't end up being born, so then I don't get to make any different choices. Do you see what I mean? It seems like it wouldn't take you that long before you can poke a few holes in this one. So let's talk about another theorist, John William Dunne. Dunne was born in 1875 and dies in 1949, so roughly speaking a contemporary of Ouspensky. He was a British soldier and an aeronautical engineer, And he wrote An Experiment in Time in 1927. Dunne claimed to have experienced precognitive dreams. That means dreams where you can see the future happening in them. That formed the basis for his book. So he laid out the idea that you could be given the gist of seeing forward in time as well as looking back. The idea that you can see it back and forth, effectively. This would mean that just as you can look back and see what actions led to your present situation, you could also look forward to see the consequences of your actions. So if you wished, you could change the actions and so avoid the consequences. Now, it's fine. Again, similar issue in that it's very hard to sort of stretch this out to on a macro level. These are being purported as actual real theories for how the universe might work. We've never had them proved in any way, shape or form, but they do make for, quite frankly, fantastic sci-fi. So you could argue that an in spectacles could be seen as an illustration of one or both of these theories. We could possibly be led to believe that the Burlings have actually had this happen to them over and over and over again, and we're only now just starting to see some changes happen to them. It's possible they've been stuck in this time loop for years, for all we know. Perhaps this is the midpoint where Sheila and Eric have finally decided that they need to change their ways, and they're going to have to go through this loop a few more times until Gerald and Mr. and Mrs. Burling also change their ways. We don't know. It's interesting to apply these theories. It is not. Let me think. How can I put this? These theories influence the play rather than directly narrate exactly how the play is going to go. It does make the genre quite difficult to pin down, though. So, for example, is this sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Who knows? You know, what best fits this story? We will get into genre in a later video. So there we go. What do you think about how time is portrayed in Spectacles? Is there anything we missed? Did I get anything wrong? Let's talk about it in the comments.
I hope that has proved useful and that's given you something for your essays. Please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.